Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. His name is David Garpstas. Mr. David, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
All right, Mr. David, and also thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are a coach. Can you please, Mr. David, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. David?
Sure. I began coaching roughly 3 years ago. It was kind of the product of my journey, and feel like I'm a man of faith, big follower of God and His direction, and I felt myself searching for what that purpose was for an extended period of time. And as time had progressed, I had thought I had kind of honed in on where God had wanted me to be. And the truth of the matter is I was exactly where I needed to be at any given moment. But as conversations continued to progress with different individuals, I would find myself in this role of kind of offering mentorship, offering guidance, and more importantly, some perspective, by being able to see things in ways that other people hadn't necessarily been able to articulate that they were going through in their lives. So when enough people had kind of said to me, you should be doing something with this, this advice you've been giving, and be helping others in a capacity that is more of a full-time thing. I decided to just kind of put myself out there and see who I could help. So I currently work with individuals with a varying degree of challenges. Essentially, I see myself as kind of like the catalyst that kind of gets people from a place of being stuck to a place of not being stuck by helping them define their target. And then from there, we kind of break the journey into pieces.
That is very, very amazing and beautiful. Despite the experience you've had, and despite you dedicating yourself as someone who wants to teach and also encourage people, a follower of Christ, and also the person who has also helped us in every single ways. And for us to use that idea that we've had to bring people together and say, despite the challenges you are facing, I can be there for you to actually give you the sense of advice. I can be there for you to, to coach you, to give you the guidance, despite spiritual or physical, to make you understand the way the world is being programmed. Because sometimes when we study this world, it's just like a world that is being programmed, and we have to understand how it is, despite spiritually and also physically as well. Also, from the experience you've had and also your coaching work that you've been doing in recent months or years, do you have any plan to write any book, or have you written any book, Mr. David?
No book as of yet, but it's definitely something that's been on top of mind as of late.
Okay.
I've been working with some individuals on some business coaches, and just some personal coaches on, not just me helping others, but I also need that guidance and direction as well. And it's kind of the thing that keeps resurfacing as an opportunity that may be there. Um, I journal daily, and as I start looking back over my daily thoughts and things, you start to realize you essentially have written a book. It just hasn't been published. So it definitely, I don't yet, but my plan is to in the future at some point.
Definitely. And it is very, very encouraging, despite the experience you've had, to actually bring that out to make people also understand better in some perspective. And I would like to drive to the point where many listeners feel quite a quiet pull towards something more, but fear and uncertainty keep them still. How do you think one can recognize when God is calling them into a new season of life or purpose, Mr. David?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's quieting the noise around you, because at our core, and again, this is how I believe, and I believe that every single one of us was designed with a specific direction and path and purpose, input by God, and the closest we are to that purpose is the day we were born. And every waking moment from the day we were born until where we sit today, or where somebody sits in their lives currently, has been impacted and shaped based on their environment around them, intentionally and unintentionally. And so the first thing that somebody needs to do is kind of recognize that a lot of the things that they're pursuing may not be thoughts of their own, or their own desires. They may have and likely have been influenced by outside opinion. With the world of social media and all these things now, it's rare that somebody has a thought that's truly their own. It's usually influenced by something they've seen, they've heard, somebody's told them. And the reality of it is you kind of have to get deep inside and know yourself. And when you know yourself, you can start to uncover, the values and the things that you were born with, that God created you with. And then from there, I believe that God guides us by energizing thoughts and feelings. And our brain's job is usually to deprive us of going to do that because we try to our subconscious wants to keep us safe, and we start referencing every single known moment we have. We reference the experience that maybe other people have had, and we use that to formulate whether something's going to be safe or not. And the reality of it is if God's guiding you there, he's got you. And it's just unhinging those fears that most people say. And the way I like to look at it is you'll know exactly where God is guiding you. When I equate it to two things. One, when you have so much energy, it's like when you meet a girl for the first time, or somebody that you're super excited to meet, and you find out she likes you, and you can't sleep all night because you're super excited, and it doesn't matter. You get super energized. It's that type of I can't get the thought out of my mind that I just am that interested in it that you don't think about anything else. And then also it's also the thing where it could be this beautiful depiction, this beautiful vision that you have for your life, and you can't even see that there's a massive canyon between you and it. You don't care. Nothing will stop you from getting there. And when you feel that energy, that is God letting you know it's time to go. And most of the time throughout life, and again, a lot of this is just what my belief system is
Yes.
and how I've come to see how life works, is that we get indications all along the way. And generally speaking, when God needs us to move from where we're sitting and reposition into somewhere else, it may not just be for us, it may be specifically because had we not moved to the next season, somebody who needs to be around us may not have contact to us because we stay put and we don't move. So when God needs us to move, we generally start to feel things of like lack of fulfillment, unhappiness, but we can't usually put a finger on it. And then what do? We generally stay in place because, well, it's safe and life isn't so bad. And why would I jeopardize doing all of this and take a chance when everything's not bad? And a handful of years ago, and kind of where all of this clicked for me was I had donated a kidney to an individual back in 2020. And that was really when I first started to pay attention to divine intervention and God's energizing thoughts and feelings. I was in a car driving down the road, and I remember this crazy wave of chills come over my body. And I had this clear vision of me sitting in a hospital room next to this individual who I ultimately ended up being a kidney donation match for. And I was like, well, that was interesting. Ended up going through the donation process, and I really just started to evaluate that whole situation and realize the times in my life where I had been excited and I had been energized and I had taken the step to move in that direction that energized me. And I started realizing in every single one of those moments was God's hand guiding me and leading me there for a specific reason. And I think too often we could sit there and I'll use this as an example. One of those transitions for me was I grew up working in the restaurant industry, and I had a career change. I transitioned into real estate. And for me, that energizing feeling of getting into real estate, I was like, oh, God wants me to be a real estate agent. And the reality of it was I got moved into real estate so that I could meet this individual who I donated a kidney to. So I think oftentimes when we feel that God's ready for us to move, we misidentify what that movement is. And we need to just be open and porous to the situation and say, yes, I got this. Whatever you need, I know you got my back. You need me there. I'm going to go, and just go without asking questions.
I sincerely appreciate the beautiful insights, Mr. David. It shows that I think you understand how this world actually works at times. And these little things, if we can try our best to understand it better, I think we'll find life more easier to deal with because we do know there are distractions out there. I can go through my Facebook, my Instagram. I will see a lot of ads that's actually distracting. A lot of things are distracting out there. But despite we being human, God actually is the greatest of all. He was the one that created the earth and the light and darkness, and He is the one that knows what's next for us. And if we want to try our best to actually get our next step, it's always within us. It's always within be sitting down and having the sense of thinking. There will be distraction because, as you said earlier, the brain always loves to distract, always love to say, do this, do this, do this. But that is not the case. The answer is always here. And sometimes we feel overwhelmed. Every single one will face the situation. Sometimes we get to a position whereby we go back in life. We go to a position in life whereby we're being admitted to a place where we do not really even like. We're like, why will I do this? My friends are there, my brothers are here, and I am here. It's painful, but there is always a specific reason. We realize that by the end of the day, there is something that will come out of that place. And that is how the world is. We have to just try our best to accept, try our best to know we are doing the right thing, and continue to put every single thing we do in the hands of God because it's the greatest. And we can do every single thing we know we can do in the right way. I think we can move forward in a world whereby anxiety will not really affect us. We will really feel more strong despite the ups and downs we have in life. So I sincerely appreciate you for that beautiful insight. I sincerely appreciate. And I would like to get to the point whereby life really feel overwhelming at times. For some people, life feel overwhelming and it is also easy for them to touch, with identity. How do you think listeners can try their best to, rediscover who they are in Christ rather than who they are to the world, or family, or past experiences has told them to be? Because some people who live with past experiences. This happened to me. I faced this kind of issues when I was young, or some people is what they are facing currently. How can we rediscover ourselves in that same Christ, Mr. David?
Well, truthfully, I think one of the worst things that people can do, and they do it unintentionally, is make their past be their identity. And that's not the case, and it shouldn't be that way. But I understand why folks do it. But in my personal opinion is it really gets down to finding quiet time consistently to where you're not allowing inputs to come in and continue to add to all the clutter internally. Because I believe that, again, for us to find our God-given purpose and who we are as an individual, who God designed us to be, we have to uncover. It's like layers upon layers of an onion that need to be peeled back, and unintentionally, over our time on this planet, we just continue to we ingest things and we take things in through ears and through our eyes that just add all these layers of compression on top of who we are at our core. So that takes some undoing. And the only way that I've found successfully to be able to do that is to give yourself time and space and silence and in prayer and thought, and ask really good questions in those moments. And what that does is it starts to create this release of thought. That the hard part is usually when people start that process, it feels like you're getting nowhere. Your mind's jumping around. Somebody has referenced it as like the monkey mind, where it's like swinging from branch to branch. It's like this thought and this thought and this thought, and you just can't really sit still, and none of it makes any sense. But the reality of it is your internals working and allowing this release of all these things that don't serve you and all these things that you've kind of just plunged into yourself. It gives it the space to breathe. And once that happens, you really start to unearth who you are at your core and give yourself an opportunity to really identify how God made you and who God made you to be. And through all of that, you can increase your connection, my belief, increase your connection and your ability to communicate and really understand. It's There was a movie, The Matrix, years ago about gentlemen basically this pill and that pill, and the reality of it is there's two different worlds that run, in my opinion. And there's the world of the way God designed and intended it to be, and then there's the way of the world today. And the way of the world today will literally sweep you away like a rushing river if you let it. When you take the time to understand who you are and how you operate, you have the ability to be your feet are planted more firmly, And it gives you the opportunity to then, if you wanted to take a step into the world, you don't get swept away because you know who you are. Rather than you not having an idea who you are, it's almost like being a chameleon where, you know, as a chameleon goes, they change the color of what, their skin so that they can blend in with their surrounding. And I feel like that's what most of us do, myself included. I'm guilty of it, of needing to feel like you have to have a certain thing or be a certain way or just to be able to fit in these different areas of what the world is asking of the world today. And when you find out who you are at your core and who God designed you to be, you can walk into a room of green and be like, I don't really like green. I prefer blue, and that's how God made me to be. And I'm going to be blue today. And you can continue to be blue. And then you start to recognize that colors in that room start to change because people see that you're willing to stand confidently and know who you are, that it becomes infectious and they can almost start to learn from you to understand who they are. And I truly believe like if everybody was dialed in, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody because I still have a ton of work to do to figure out. And it's an evolution, it's an ongoing journey.
Exactly.
But I truly believe that if, and you probably could attest to this, that if 90% of the people that you walked and encountered it on a daily basis actually knew who they were at their core, they probably would be doing something completely different than what they're doing with their lives today. But they have the fears, they have the programming, they have all these things that hold them back. So I think just getting yourself the time and the space to really just sit and be still, which we have such a hard time doing these days. And sometimes that's also a geographical change, environment change. Generally speaking, if somebody wants to get silent and still and they sit on their couch and they're like, all right, I have no distractions, I'm going to be quiet. Well, after 5 minutes of sitting in silence, well, there's the TV remote or there's my phone. So sometimes putting yourself in a different environment triggers different things and you can really start to unearth all those things that we've packed in there.
I sincerely appreciate it. It shows that despite we as humans, we should try our best to understand how our own system works. Sometimes I usually see our body like a computer. A computer understand how it works, it produces everything. When we understand how we operate, what makes us good and what makes us firm enough, we are in a higher chance to feel more firm and not in a place whereby we get distracted very easily. When we understand ourselves, stay more firm, understand our system, we do know. Sometimes they usually say, follow the trend. It is what is trending, then you adapt to it. It isn't that is not how the world is sometimes. Sometimes when we follow things like that, we might be in a position, as you said, to feel the sense of pain and discomfort because that is not what the body actually wants. When we know what we definitely want, what we want for our own self and how our system work, we can use that as a source of growth and inspiration. It doesn't need to be the same like others. We just need to do it in the way we feel like we are more comfortable. We discover that with time, we see the growth, we see the development, we see our mistake, and we give the correction. And that is one of the best way we can actually build ourselves. I would just like to squeeze this into the point whereby people feel tired from always carrying responsibilities, leadership responsibility, or even being the strong one. They do a lot of work, and sometimes they even usually forgot to get to lean on the one who actually created them. So how do you think they can try their best to lean on God rather than just staying constant and running on that survival mode, Mr. David?
I think it's as simple as asking for help and realizing that they're not on this journey. We're not on this journey alone. And as humans, we forget that because we're in a very tactile, tangible world. And the reality of it is you always hear the phrase that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I believe that, but I also believe that we shortchange ourselves on what we're capable of. And God has programmed us and designed us and created us to be infinite beings that we can withstand way more than what we believe we can. And sometimes and we all go through it where we feel like we've reached our max potential, we feel like we can't carry anymore, and we're praying to God. Sometimes that comes in just having a conversation with a fellow human that can walk that journey with you, that can reinvigorate your steps, can re-energize your thoughts, can help you remember that God is with you. And I think that what ends up happening is when we start to feel like we can't take it anymore, and I've been there, and I'm sure you've been there before too. You start to remember like that's me. That's my brain talking. That's the thing that's beautiful, that's designed between my ears, but it also works against us just as well as it works for us. And when you can separate that, you almost create, like I said, two worlds. You create this dimension in your life where there's the one-dimensional living, which is the everyday life, the
Yes.
responsibilities, the finances, the kids, the family, whatever, all of these things that are one-dimensional. And then in order to be able to respond and act accordingly to handle the things that God needs all of us to be doing, you have to elevate yourself above that life. You have to experience life from a level and see things in a way that you don't see when you're standing shoulder to shoulder with people. It's like being on a sports field and playing with all the players and playing the game, but then taking a step up to the coach's box who's sitting how many feet above the field and has a different vantage point. And when you can get in practice of being able to see life that way, you start to recognize that God's design is such a beautiful thing, and that you now can put yourself back on that same position on the field and realize, oh, I can't handle that. God created way more dimensions to this life than you and I will ever experience. But the reality of it is we generally only give ourselves this one-dimensional life to play with, and that's not how I believe spirituality and God works in our lives. When you truly are working and aiming, and I think the other important answer to your question, or how I would answer that, is when we feel if our target is to achieve some worldly accolade, then life will be hard. Absolutely. If we're truly in alignment with God's purpose of where He's guiding us, saying yes to those energizing thoughts and feelings, going without asking questions and just believing, the support and the help is there. And generally, sometimes when we feel like I can't do this anymore or the life is tough, I think you need to have an honest and open conversation with yourself internally to determine, well, who did you take direction from to walk in the direction you're going? Because sometimes I found this in my past, sometimes when I felt life was super, super heavy and that, I couldn't handle it anymore, I would pray to God and I know He was there, but sometimes it was His way of saying, you're not walking the right way, man. Like I need you to turn around, and here's where I've been asking you to go, but your ego and everything else, has taken you that direction.
Hmm.
So God is always there to help. And I think it's a blend of, again, knowing who you are at your core based off of how God designed you and created you, and utilizing that and His help and creating that and making sure you're walking in the same direction that He wants you to walk. Because sometimes the heaviness comes from, you know, the pair of shoes might be a great pair of shoes. They might look great on your feet, but they're probably uncomfortable because they're the wrong pair of shoes. Like it's just being in alignment with His process, and He's an infinite source of energy and power and is just always there. And it's our brains that kind of, I think, confuse that whole remembering that from time to time.
What you just brought out is very, very important and really, really 100% emotional in a bit of it because the world that we are living in today, despite how we are and despite how we've seen ourselves, the way the plan goes at times, we might not be comfortable with it. But despite the person that is with us, which is the God that we are serving, He has actually given us the way. Despite the challenges, He has given us the way we can actually deal with some certain kind of situations in life. But sometimes when we're in the position, we have to, sometimes we just feel like, I don't think I need to do this way. I don't think I want to do it this way. I don't think it's not something I'm comfortable with. And we really, really get really hurt. Like we get to a position whereby we feel the sense of huge regret when we see situations. That is why one of the most important things we need to develop in our life most of the time is patience. Because when we are patient enough and we are able to sit down and think very well before we start to, make decisions out of the sense of ego or some stuff like that, we have to sit down and say, what is the best right now? What do I think I can do now? We realize that what we actually need from the God plan actually comes in. Then we check and differentiate, because every single decision we make really, really matters and it counts in a very, very huge way. So I sincerely appreciate that very huge insight. It's a very, very important insight and a very, very essential one for people to understand that we can try our best to think we are in the right place, but we have to try our best to know how we can connect with the God we are serving and be patient enough to make sure we are not actually demanding something that God is actually saying. It's right there, but you didn't answer me. We do not want that. And something we are supposed to achieve within a week, we spend months to achieve it. We do not want to be in that position. So I sincerely appreciate you for that beautiful insight. Also, Mr. David, there is a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. David?
Human connection. I mean, it's I think COVID showed us that people missed being around each other and needing to just have a conversation. Now, granted, we're blessed to be able to you and I communicate today through screens, but it's still conversation. I can make eye contact with you, you can make eye contact with me, we're both listening.
Yes.
And that is the one thing that is just, it's gone by the wayside. And everybody is, so distracted. And I would just love to see people get around each other without technology, play games, learn about each other, just really hear, not just sit in a room and me talk and yeah, yeah, whatever. Like, did you hear what I said kind of thing? And I feel like that is the greatest part. And a lot of people start to create distance in themselves and into the world because they feel like they're not being heard. And it's on both, it's both sides. It's not just the people who need that are also not giving it as well. And it's getting people back to, and part of what I pray my work can do is help people recognize of getting back to those days, getting back to when the world wasn't as chaotic as it was, getting back to the moments when I don't know about where you live, but like when I was growing up, if you would get a knock on the door, everybody would be rushing to the door to answer it. And, it was exciting to see somebody.
Yes.
Now, this day and age, people are turning lights off. They're not answering the door. Maybe it's an Amazon driver or delivery package. But generally speaking, people are not excited to see people anymore. And that drives me insane. So that is what I would love to bring back.
Humanity is one of the biggest things we've lost currently. What we only see today is the surface. Text, video, audio, that is what we just see. The human connection is what we actually need in our life to develop something actually real. And humanity, I do believe that humanity is something that will come back, but it's something that I feel like it will be in another phase. Something that it could be a bit different, like the way it is in the 19th. So we do hope that what we've built could be a source of growth and also a way that we can connect with each other and also do it physically, which is one of the most important things that we are losing today. Mr. David, I want to also use this opportunity to thank you for the good work you are doing out there, for the time, the opportunity, because this world, hmm, it is really programmed. If we can try our best to understand at least 2% out of 100% in this the way this world is, I think we'll really do well on earth. And these are the things that the people who are successful today really know. Most of them understand it. But sometimes when they say it to people, people do not usually understand. And that is why the answer is always right at the front of us. I also want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time, the opportunity you're given today. Thank you so much, Mr. David.
Thank you. I really appreciate the
Yes.
opportunity.
Okay. All right. Have a wonderful day, Mr. David. Bye bye.
Bye.